Hello, in this video we'll be going over some basic half-life problems. So first off, before we start any questions, let's take a look at what half-life is. So half-life occurs when you have elements that undergo basically decay. So half-life is the time it takes for half the amount of an element to decay pretty much. So let's say you have just some element. I'm just going to use a random letter A to symbolize the element. And it decays into some elements, I don't know, like Q, pretty much. And in the half-life, we denote it as T of a half is, let's say, is 24 days. So every 24 days, the amount here basically halves. So let's say initially we have 80 grams of some element A. So these aren't actual elements here, these are just letters I've chosen for pretty much they could represent any element. So initially, let's say we have 80 grams. After 24 days, so 24 days, we're going to have 40 grams. And after another 24 days, we're going to have half of this amount here. So that's going to be 20 grams. And so on and so forth. It just keeps the amounts, whatever we have here will halve and turn into 40, whatever we have here will halve and turn to 20, etc, etc, etc. That's basically what half-life is. Okay? Now we have a formula we can use to calculate it. So I'm just going to write out the formula that you'll see in books and how we write it in real life. So this is the formula. So we have N equals NO multiplied by half all to the power of N. Or you could write it, the better way to write it is N equals NO multiplied by half all to the power of, where is it? Hold up, I wrote it down just over here. Time over half-life. So you may see this symbol in your books, this N. So N basically means, the N is basically the time divided by the half-life. I would encourage, if you have this in your formula book or textbook, I would encourage to rather use this one instead, because this one makes a lot more sense. Okay? So instead of using the N, just replace the N with time divided by half-life. Don't even use any symbols, just write time divided by half-life, and it'll make all these problems a whole lot easier. Now, what does the rest of the stuff mean? So N is basically the new amount. So you know how before I was saying we had 80 grams, and then after 24 days, we had 40 grams. So in this case, this 40 grams is the new amount. NO is the initial amount. So NO in this scenario would be the 80 grams. And the half-life, we denote it as T a half, is 24 days. Now, you have initial amount, the new amount, and the half-life. You can pretty much work out how long it takes for that to happen, and you can just solve pretty much every problem. So, for half-life problems, use this formula rather than this, because you're going to have to use this one anyway, because N is time over half-life. Okay? I feel like you'll start to understand it a bit more once we get into an actual question itself. So, let's get straight into one. So, we have, what's the element called? This is, I think it's called, I actually can't pronounce these elements. Yeah, I can't pronounce it. The thorium, I think it is. Basically decays into, yeah, I can't pronounce that. It undergoes decay. I can't pronounce these elements. I'm really bad at English, but the point is, we don't really need to know how to pronounce them as long as we know what we're talking about. So, the thorium is this element here, and it decays into this element, undergoes beta decay, pretty much. So that's the story behind that. So if you start with 500 grams of thorium, and it has a half-life of 24 days, so notice how I put T of a half up here, so that's the half-life. How much will be left after 50 days? Okay, so if you want to have a go at this question, feel free to pause the video and have a go. Alright, straight off the back, let's write out our formula. So N equals NO multiplied by a half to the power of time over half life. Okay? So we have 500 grams initially, so NO is 500 grams. Okay? Half-life, T half, is 24 days. Okay? So where I got this information, I just read it straight from here and here. How much will be left after 50 days? So we've also been given the time. So the time is 50 days. So we don't need to rearrange anything. We're basically trying to find n because we've got NO, we have the time and the half-life, okay? So we're trying to find n. So n is unknown. And we don't have to rearrange everything. We can just start plugging this into the formula pretty much, okay? So let's just write out a new line. So we'll go n is equal to 500 multiplied by a half. Now this half is to the power of all this. So to the power we have the time, which is 50, divided by the half-life, which is 24. Okay, so that's all to the power. Now you're going to put that into your calculator. So make sure you are very careful with your brackets and stuff, because one little error in the calculator, it can give you the wrong answer and you'll get this whole question wrong. So putting that in your calculator, n equals, oopsie daisy, I did not mean to type just then. Delete that, oopsie daisy. Oh, that's a part of the next question. Alright, so n, why is it doing that? Hold up. Sorry guys, so n, I'm just going to write it here. Alright, so n, I'll just rewrite here. Putting that into our calculator, n is 117.98 grams. Okay, so that's how much is going to be left after 50 days with the half-life of 24 days, and if you start with 500 grams. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Let's go on to the next question. Alright, next question is exactly the same as the first question. So if you didn't get the first question right, feel free to have a go at this one now that I'm showing you how to do it. So if you start with 120 grams of radium, how much will be left after 44 days? Now notice I haven't included the half-life in the sentence here, but I've included it here. Okay, so feel free to pause the video and have a go. Alright, straight off the back, let's write our formula. So n equals NO multiplied by a half, all to the power of time over half life. Okay. NO, our initial amount is 120 grams. Okay. How much will be left after 24 days? Also, half-life is up here, is 11 days. Okay. How much will be left after 44 days? So we've also been given the time. So time is 44 days. And basically we just need to find n. Okay. So n is unknown. So plug in these numbers into our formula. N equals 120 multiplied by a half, and this half is all to the power of 44 divided by the half-life, which is 11. Plugging that into your calculator, 120 multiplied by a half, all to the power of 44 divided by 11, and you should get n is equal to 7.5 grams. Okay? Cool, let's move on to our third and last question. This question is a bit different from the previous one. I'm going to probably get you to arrange the formula a bit, okay? So it's the same principles as before, except you're just going to have to rearrange and probably find something different. Alright, so 100 grams of substance B. So I haven't actually given you an element, I've just given you some random letter to represent our substance. So that could be any element on the periodic table, okay? 100 grams of substance B, half-life of 20 days. How long will it take for the amount to decay to 10 grams? Alright, so if you want to have a go at this question, feel free to pause the video and have a go. Alright, so let's write out our formula. So n equals NO multiplied by a half, all to the power of time over half life. Okay? So NO is our initial amount. So we have 100 grams. Okay. So I read that here. Our half-life we've been told here. So T of a half equals 20 days. How long will it take for the amount to decay to 10 grams? So we're looking for a time. So our time is unknown. It's what we're looking for. And we've been given our final amount, which is our N, or our new amount, which is 10 grams. Okay? So we're going to have to rearrange our formula here to make T, time, the little time up here, the subject of the formula. Now doing that, you're going to need to know log laws. Okay? So let's just go over that. Let's say you have A equals B to the X. Okay? If you take the log of both sides, so if you go the natural log of A equals the natural log of B, you can bring this down the front. So we'll have log of A equals X multiplied by log of B divided by log of B divided by log of B, and then you have X as the subject of the formula. Okay, you're gonna need to know this. Okay, it's okay if you don't. Just go and watch a log video if you want to have a go at these problems, because I don't currently have one on the channel at the moment. I will be making one soon, but currently I don't. So if you want to get ahead of your Half-Life education, I go find a video on logarithms. Okay. Alright, cool. So let's plug in our numbers into our formula so we can start rearranging things. So N is 10, NO is 100, multiplied by a half to the power of T over 20. So we have a divided by 20 up here. Now we're just going to make T the subject. So first of all I'm going to divide both sides by 100. That will cancel that there. So we're going to have 1 over 10 equals a half all to the power of T over 20. This is where our log law is going to come in. We're going to log both sides so we can bring the T over 20 down the front. So we'll go natural log of 1 over 10 equals T over 20 log of a half. Okay. Now we're going to divide both sides by log of a half. You don't have to use natural log. You can use also log to the base 10. That's on your calculator, or you can use ln, which is just log to the base e. As long as you're using the same logs, it doesn't really matter what base you use, as long as it's either log 10 or log to the base e. Okay. Divide both sides by log of a half. Okay, so that cancels here. We have 20 on the bottom, so we're going to multiply both sides by 20. So we have T as the subject. Now, it's important you put this whole thing in your calculator properly. So I want you to put this exactly into your calculator. I want you to put 20 multiplied brackets log of 1 over 10 divide by log over half brackets. Put that exactly into your calculator and you should get the right answer. So if you put that exactly into your calculator, so get log of 1 over 10 divided by log of a half brackets, you should get T, whoopsie daisy, you should get T equals 66.43 days. Okay? Alright, so that was my video on Half-Life. If you have any follow-up questions, please leave some in the comments, and if you learned something, subscribe, thumbs up, and tell others about this channel. Alright, thank you.